We have on my immediate left George Ramsey Benamba, Chief Editor with the Ghana News Agency. And on my far left is Cliff Akufo, a journalist with the New Times Corporation. Thank you very much for joining us, gentlemen. And Happy New Year to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's right. I spot Cliff actually having a new look for this new year. Yeah, of course.
Osama Osama bin Laden look.
Decides to go bald for me.
I thought this has been my
trademark
look. Yeah.
Okay.
I've not been observant.
Let's have Osama is grown longer.
Of course, yeah. Some nourishing for it. So.
Okay. Let's start from you, George.
Well,
E-levy.
Yeah, E-levy.
Do you think what is going on so far is productive, effective?
There's a popular quote I always love to give out when I'm facing issues like this one. And that quote is it's a proverb from Olarutumi's "Gods are not to blame." That until the rotten tooth is pulled out of the mouth, then it must continue to chew cautiously. Why am I using this proverb? I'm using that because this rotten tooth has been in the mouth of Ghanaians since the budget statement presented by Minister of Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, some weeks back. Since that time, there were a lot of issues at stake concerning the budget. But it looks like the most prominent among them has become the E-levy, as if there were no other issues. As we talk now, a lot of them have been passed in Parliament quietly, and we are a lot of them.
Yet to know.
But the E-levy has continued to be the rotten tooth that I'm talking about here. And for me, I can see the entrenched positions both sides have taken so far. And for the benefit and development of this country, there's the need for both sides to strike a compromise somewhere along the line. Because it is often said that if two elephants fight, it is the grass that will suffer. Why am I saying this? If NDC and MPP are fighting over E-levy in Parliament, it is we Ghanaians in general that are going to suffer it. If we are not able to generate any income, as was envisioned by the introduction of E-levy, then we'll have to continue to borrow as the economists will tell us. And continuous borrowing, you all know, will place or further plunge the country into a financial doldrum, which we don't all want to hear of. So for me, as it stands now, I think that they have all stated their side of the story, which we all know. The minority are saying it will never, and it is the word never I don't want to hear. That never should be changed from never to it may, for me. And I think the majority have also taken an entrenched position. We will pass it. But they should also know that in passing it, you need the support of the other side of the house to ensure that it is effectively done. So that is where I think that consensus building in Parliament is very necessary. Consultations at committee levels, bringing it up to the top of parliamentary affairs. And I think that they owe us a duty as members of Parliament. They owe the 30 million Ghanaians as a duty to come out with workable solutions to this empires that they have. At the end of it all, if we don't benefit, they will also not benefit. People are now creating other stories saying that if this issue was about their improvement, personal improvement, emoluments and other issues, by now they would have passed it. So it means that they are beginning, Ghanaians are beginning to cast a slur on their reputation as well. So they also owe us a duty to perform to the satisfaction of all the 30 million Ghanaians that we have now. If they are able to do this, I'm not saying the 1.75 is absolute. They could work it out to have further reduction. What that will mean is they might not hit the target that they are aiming at. But half a loaf, they always say, is better than none. If they are able to reach some level, maybe as it goes on, Ghanaians will understand the concept better.
That's right.
Then when they are even increasing it to maybe 2%, the complaints will not be as we are we are facing now. I always believe in the situation that when a coiled snake is lying down, you want to know where the head is. You hit it. When you hit it, the snake will raise it here. Then you see it. So let's begin somewhere.
The Northerners and these kind of proverbs, wise proverbs, it always works for me. Cliff, he raised quite an interesting point, looking at the perspective of whether the public or the masses actually understand what is really going on, or the nitty-gritties of this e-levy thing. One may be of the school of thought that the politicians, or should we say the lawmakers, are concentrating too much on the debate, the back and forth, instead of actually making the masses understand exactly the e-levy thing. Do you think this?
Thank you very much, and Happy New Year to our cherished viewers. The current situation we find ourselves in with the e-levy, I say simply what Ghanaians actually voted for when we went to the polls in 2020. Taxes, no matter how small it is, have always generated debate, huge debate and resistance, not only in this country, but across the world. Nobody takes delight in parting with a cent. And so, yes, somebody will talk about educating the masses to appreciate and to understand why there is the need for that particular tax. But in a parliamentary democracy, once you vote for an MP, you cede your power of thought and act to that MP, for the MP to represent you. The situation we find ourselves in, with all the brouhaha, is because of the balance in Parliament. I can tell you, if the majority had an overwhelming majority...
You're talking about numbers.
The issue about public engagement and all that may not...
But hasn't that always been the case in Parliament? I mean, they always debate on issues, even when the numbers were, the odds were against the minority. This time around,
the debate has been held, but they're saying that the minority will have their say and the majority will have their way. And I'm saying the balance in Parliament is making it difficult for the majority to have its way.
How? I don't understand that bit.
You simply do not have the numbers. That gives you the majority. Because 137, 138. The absence of one limits you. You understand? And so I appreciate and understand the posture of the minority. Ordinarily, somebody will say, okay, why is the minority not thinking about nation first? Because history under the Fourth Republic has shown us that in terms of taxes, when the VAT was introduced, we saw the resistance that the minority at that time put out against the VAT. Interestingly, when that minority subsequently became the majority, the VAT became an important source of revenue for them.
And was increased.
And was even increased. And to date, we are beneficiaries of that particular tax element.
Yeah.
So NHIS has a key component which is dependent on the VAT.
Yeah.
You understand? And there are other things that depend largely on the VAT. Similarly, in 2005, 2006, when we decided to introduce a particular tax, which we call the communication service tax, where the money that will accrue from that tax will be used in financing the growing youth unemployment in the country. We saw the resistance that was put out by the minority at that time. In both instances, it is because the majority at that time had the overwhelming majority. Yes, you will debate, you will put out your thoughts, your everything forcefully. But then at the end of the day, we say, after George Owen, we put you to vote and let the majority carry the day. When tables turn, those who vehemently communication service tax, which the Christian talk tax, we were made to believe that even the air we breathe, as a result of that tax, was going to be taxed. Interestingly, when they got the chance, they increased it from the 6% to the 9%, just as those who oppose the VAT. Today, as we speak, the communication service tax, just as the VAT, are still part, key component of our revenue mobilization drive. So every tax you introduce will generate some level of heat. But then per the 2020 general elections, especially the parliamentary election, and how the results pan out, clearly show that this is exactly what Ghanaians wanted. We Ghanaians voted not for just a minority that will raise the issues and allow you to have your numbers. It's not as if the majority can't pass it. The majority will need its numbers, the 138, to be in the House on the day a vote will be taken on that particular levy, even at the 1.75%. If that is what the majority, it is up to the whip to whip every member into the chamber. Whether I beat you by 1 or by 100, majority will still remain majority. Once I beat you by even half, it means I have half more than you do, and that becomes the majority. So 2020 has taught us a lesson. In actual fact, I anticipated on this that we were going to have some of these issues, even with the passage of the approval of ministers. Somehow we managed to navigate our way. The consultation among the members of parliament themselves managed to give us our ministers of state and other issues. This particular one, and of course, like I've said, every opposition will take advantage of the passage of a tax because they know no matter how good that particular tax is going to serve, the citizens ordinarily will oppose the tax, for which reason politically they want to take advantage of it. And I have said it, if tomorrow we wake up and this tax is passed and the next day there is an election and the minority happens to take the seat, I can tell you this particular tax will not be scrapped. Likely, the benefit of it, they may leverage on it and increase it because it becomes an easy way of revenue mobilization.
So are you saying that we allow this to go on where the majority and the minority will always have debates over taxes at the expense of the understanding of the ordinary Ghanaian?
It is not at the expense of the understanding of the ordinary Ghanaian.
That is exactly what I'm saying. Has education gone down enough?
It is, even if education goes down enough, and I'm saying, once you go into the pool and I say, it is you I'm giving my power to, for you to represent me.
Exactly, that's what I was.
You take decision on my behalf.
Yeah.
So every MP represents
A
not
constituency.
half of a constituency, every member of that constituency. So whether you voted for the person or not, once that person emerges as the member of parliament for that constituency, he represents your interests.
But then he takes what the people say and then
But
represents
how
it
do
on
you
the
measure
front
what the
back.
people say?
Yeah, so
Unfortunately,
don't they do
unfortunately it is not part of
They're
our...
supposed to be visiting their constituencies.
Yes.
Even if
Do
you're visiting part of
engagements.
the constituency,
Yes.
there is no mechanism where you put every issue to a referendum in that constituency for us to determine.
No, not even going that far.
No, but so
But then
if you say
listening to the
listening,
people,
so
engaging
it
the
means
people.
if you go and you listen to 10 people out of 135,000 people in your constituency, would that be a fair enough an assessment for which you base your voting decisions on? No. So that is the price you pay for in a democracy. At the end of the day, I am telling you, the majority must wake up from their slumber. We call them the majority because they have 138 members. And 138 members is what we call a working majority. You understand? Let us have the debate. The minority understands this game very well. And so they will put every impediment in your way, irrespective of how much you appeal to them. Because they know, yes, you have the 138, but your inability to galvanize the entire 138, they will not join you.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll come back. We'll come back to that. We'll come back to that. But let me still on this issue. Yeah. When you talk about it being in Parliament, off Parliament, we've had people discussing it in the marketplace. We've had people discussing it on media. Yeah. We've engaged financial experts, economic experts, social experts who've all come out to say their own, give their take about this e-levy thing. Yeah. And from the look of things, from where I am, from my spectacles, it seems majority of people are against this e-levy.
Is the incitement.
Now, so the debate in Parliament is having a reflective effect, let's say, on how it has been discussed by the ordinary Ghanaian or in our world, out of Parliament. Yeah. Shouldn't that also be taken into consideration?
Very well, it should be part of the consultation issues. But as Cliff said from the beginning, that if the majority had an overwhelming number, these issues wouldn't have even come in the first place. Because when you have the numbers, what they do is, at the end of the debate, you go in for the voting. And the majority, they will always say, will carry the day. If you remember some tax issues in 2009, that time I was a parliamentary correspondent, okay. 2009, then there was this tax on alcoholic beverages and water. And there was a huge debate. They debated on it for 3 times. And they couldn't get...
I think that one wasn't passed.
Yeah, it wasn't passed. Then, you know, the minority at that time went out to hold a press conference and invited the media. I know the way they christened it, Apeteshie levy. And it became, and the way they put it, that our people who tap palm wine in the villages and brew Apeteshie are the poorest in society. Yeah. And these people, they do that for a living. Now government is going to tax them out of business. And that, at the end of the day, a lot of people will even abandon the brewing of Apeteshie and the tapping of palm wine. That was the indication. But my brother, looking at the tax, it wasn't even up to, it seems it wasn't up to 1% of But we created somebody, an MP, in Suya Benom, so you got your tax a day. It was then that oxygen issue also came. It's like if we don't fight it one day, government will come back and tell us that they will have machines to measure our level of oxygen we take in within a day, and we are going to pay for that. This is what I think is serious incitement. The minority will always try to incite the public. It is what they come out to say. You know, they all have good followings. So if the minority today come out to say this,
you think Ghanaians, Ramsey, you think Ghanaians are that gullible?
I'm not saying Ghanaians are gullible, but you see, excuse me to say that we have a high illiteracy rate in the system, to the extent that people will always depend on the educated ones. Sometimes somebody will ask, they say this, what do you think? You are uneducated.
I thought maybe the trend of election that we had 2 years ago should have actually been, should have given a different perspective to how the ordinary Ghanaian understand politics. I mean, you are seeing clear signs of skirt and blouse voting.
Yes, going, and it all depends on what they incite each other. People go there to incite them. Somebody will go and raise an issue in your village and say that the last time this man won and he couldn't represent you in this and that. And if the people are able to buy into that idea, you are finished. No matter how good you are finished. So I think that minority all the time, not one particular party. Anytime the minority says something, there are people listening a lot. And I think that in most cases, majority go to sleep. They don't envisage some of those challenges until they go into the chamber. So the numbers are very, very important. I think that we as if I say we as Ghanaians need to educate each other. Because somebody will come to you and even tell you that the rate at which they will tell you that they say e-levy. When they begin with the e-levy, what it means is that whatever money, they don't even know that we are paying taxes for those things already. When you send money now, don't you pay?
Yeah.
You use Visa cards. You use Visa cards from your bank to any other bank. When you go to any ATM booth and you slot in your card, after withdrawing the money, they tax you. 2 cedis, 3 cedis, depending on the amount you pick. We are already paying some of those things. So it's just an addition. And for me, the hue and cry we are having now, I think the government was also at a point very hasty. The government envisaged that if e-levy is approved in Parliament, they are going to make a lot of money to take care of issues.
Yeah.
The reason why
we're talking about a projection of 6.9 billion.
Yeah, so the reason why they immediately stopped the toll booths and I decided, I was thinking that the government will rather wait for the passage of that bill before they go ahead to close down the toll booths. As it stands now, we are not generating anything from there. Today I was hearing a different story. I don't want to believe that story. I don't even want to go there about the toll booth. I personally, once it was coming to replace the toll booth and other levies, we should have waited a bit to implement this one before we abolish. So why do we go that hastily? Why do we do that hastily? And now we are not generating anything from the booths. Somebody will tell you that, oh, far, just pass. So I think that the government was also very hasty in that decision. They should have allowed this bill to be passed before going in to close the toll booth. By now, would have even been generated, although they say we don't generate much from it. From November, is it November? that November up to now, at least something to mend some potholes somewhere would have been generated. As we sit here, we are losing everything until maybe a compromise is gotten at Parliament. So I think that in cases like this, as we don't, the majority don't have the numbers. The majority doesn't, they haven't got the numbers. In situations like that, I think that consultations and collaborations are very, very much, they should build the consensus before even going to the House to debate it.
Okay.
If they had done that, I want to believe that by now, the entrenched positions that they took from the beginning, they would have reached a compromise by now.
I would like to remind viewers that this is our first edition in the year, and would like to take your comments as well. So you can send your comments via WhatsApp. You can send your comments to this WhatsApp number, 055 744 6429. 055 744 6429. Send us your WhatsApp messages and we will read them live as we move along. 055 744 6429. And we'll continue with the discussion right now. Just like I said, the government is actually having a projection of 6.9 billion Ghana cedis to be made yearly from this tax. We're talking about it's replacing road tolls to get a lot of money for road infrastructure and also for the youth employment thing you're talking about. The communication tax to have taken care of that. But then we are bringing in this one to also take care of that. Then it means the problem has not been solved. Do you think that the projection they have and whatever they said will be set out to do is a reality?
Well, from where I sit and my basic understanding of some of the issues, I actually do have some level of challenge with the way this whole thing has been communicated by government communicators, because they've made it look as if once the e-levy is passed, all our problems are going to be solved overnight. From where I sit, currently, the challenge we are having and the reason why going into the either external market or the domestic market to borrow is unattractive is because of the deficit levels. It's the deficit levels because you are running at a huge deficit.
But how long will we continue to borrow?
And so what any reasonable manager of the economy will do is, how do you halt the increasing gap? And halting the increasing gap will mean any amount that you are able to generate substantially from within will bring the numbers down. Yeah. So currently, as we speak, I think we are hovering almost around 78% to GDP in terms of our debt to GDP ratio. So the space for borrowing either on the domestic or the external market has been crowded. So if within the same argument you can raise even 5 billion Ghana cedis in a year, that gives you the breather to do very little borrowing. And then once you do that, you are able to bring down the ratio. So you free yourself of a lot of things, because we have been told that how much revenue government generates in this country, a large chunk of it is used in dealing with emoluments. And then a large chunk of it is used in servicing interest payments. So if you are spending about 38 billion of how much you generate on interest payments, that is huge. And once you have not been forgiven your debt, then you will continue to service those interests. And if you combine the two, then very little is left for government to take out other expenditure. So whether you need constructing roads, whether you are providing potable water, whether you are providing social services for the citizenry, you are left with very little. And so 5 5 billion or even 6 point something billion coming in at a time is enough to cushion you for a period. And I think for me, that is where the whole communication, because at a point in time, government gave room for people to even make mockery of the reasons being adduced for this particular tax. But every penny is important in terms of government revenue generation. And so it doesn't matter whether you have communication service tax already. Once you are able to convince the people and the people buy into this tax, this new tax, then it means you have additional source of revenue. And the more sources of revenue you have, the more you free yourself from going to the external market or even on the domestic front to borrow. Because anytime you borrow, it comes with interest. If you go to borrow 1 billion on the external market, it is not just 1 billion. 1 billion plus the interest you will be paying on that 1 billion. But then if you are able to raise the same 1 billion from your own people, it is the 1 billion you have taken. First and foremost, you are not going to pay that 1 billion back to them. You are going to use it in financing whatever project they are demanding of you. And then secondly, you are not going to pay any interest on it. So the burden is shifted or is shared among all of us equally. You understand? But how you communicate the issue is very, very important. And I listen to different ministers give different reasons for which the e-levy has to be passed. And I said, wow, why are you giving room for people to make just of a very serious issue like revenue generation? And it has been so. I'm not surprised. In this our country, that is what it has been. You remember the condom and the cutlass tax? You remember? We berate virtually almost everything in the name of politics, and our development continues to remain stagnant. Like I've said,
appeal tax.
any
That's
day,
e-levy.
any day that the majority is able to pass, because once the majority passes it, it becomes part of our statute. Once e-levy passes, it becomes part of our law that you have to pay. I can bet you that no subsequent government will come and change it, because any government that is able to raise 6 billion from just one source will be a fool to scrap that amount of money.
That's right. Let me come in quickly with Ramsey. So based on what he's saying, now, looking at the proceeds we stand to gain from this tax, if it is passed, this levy, if it is passed, it means it will actually, we might end up not even going to the IMF.
Yeah, sure.
Again. So with this, it seems that education hasn't gone down well with the people. And number two, I would like to know that, is it the means of collecting this tax that is the problem for the people?
The education, I would say that maybe education on the means has not been.
If it had been any other thing apart from, you know, using the telcos, it would have been okay.
It depends on the situation and the way people take it. For me, I think I'm not an expert in income generation, but I think that the communicators would have done a better job if they had set the premise of this e-levy on COVID-19 and other matters. I think that COVID-19 had a devastating effect on every aspect of the economy, not only in Ghana, but the whole world. So as a rebuilding exercise, this particular tax or levy is so necessary to rebuild our economic system.
Show up the losses.
After all those losses, we are still even paying for a lot of maybe lot of, I mean, the losses we incurred during the
pandemic,
the apex of the pandemic. And as we sit here, I think that if the communicators had set that as their premise, maybe the benefits that Ghanaians got as a result, I know we are human beings and we easily forget good things. At a point, even school children, when they went back to school, they were given free meals. At a point, electricity bills were relaxed. At a point, water was, they had some level. Apart from the, for industrial use, the domestic water bills were all taken up by the government. So I think that if the communicators had set this as their premise, saying that, well, you all know that during the apex of the pandemic, this is what we went through. And as a rebuilding exercise, we need some of these things too. We don't need to go back borrowing, because if you keep on borrowing and paying with interest, at the end of the day, you might not be able to come out of that doldrum. So what we need to do is to have something on our own, so that when it becomes necessary to borrow from other places, we can use that money for other aspects of development. But this one should serve as a seed where we will not pay interest, where we will not pay back the money to the Ghanaian. And the people, when I say the people, Ghanaians have understood the e-levy in a different direction, maybe because of lack of focus in the education. Because people are, there are figures, people are coming out with some figures. And when you ask the experts, they will tell you that, oh, no, these figures are not real. You see on social media that when you send 1,000, this is how you are going to pay in the distance. By the calculation, some people will tell you that that is not right. It depends on how much you are sending and how it's going to be calculated. So for me, I think that we haven't received enough education, but we as Ghanaians should also take up that responsibility, because they will keep on saying that it will kill us, it will kill us. VAT would have killed us by now. As when they started, they said, kill us. What did it happen during the VAT? There were a lot of Kumipreko demonstrations where a lot of people, our current president was part of the Kumipreko group. They went through all the 10 regions of the country demonstrating against it. As we said earlier, at the end of the day, when it was accepted, when the next government came, they even increased it. So I think that educating the people out there is very important. Let them know that these are the benefits we will stand to gain at the end of it all. Don't only, we shouldn't be hyping only the negative aspect of it. The other positive side, are we talking about them? Our development, education, health, science and technology. If we get all this money, what we can use them for? Are we talking about them? What we talk about every day, what we hear every day, is about the burdening of the Ghanaian. That is always negative. What of the aspects that will benefit the Ghanaian to grow and develop?
Okay, let's talk about the middleman in all of this. Let's talk about the telcos in all of this. I mean, with all the debate going on and the effect this is going to also have on them. These are businesses that are running and they are making profit. And then we're going to channel this through them. And then there has been an arrangement that it is going to be reduced from 1.75 to 1.50. How is this going to affect the telcos? I mean, Is it well?
With the telcos, that is something that has been agitating my mind. Because what I know is that if I send 50 cedis, I'm charged, is it 50 pesos, eh?
Yeah.
That's 50 pesos per how the whole mobile money thing came about. That 50 pesos, which goes to the telcos as operational charges and profit and all other things, it's not taxed. And so I've been wondering, why didn't government exploit the option of taxing those charges that are taken away from those of us who use that platform as the first point of call? And I say this ordinarily, if government had explored that particular option, what would have happened is that possibly we will still pay, because the operator, if the operator is losing some level of profit in his or her quest to maximize profit, will shift that burden onto the final consumer. So it's been agitating my mind, but of course maybe further education will throw more light on that particular option, because from where I sit, I strongly believe that should have been the first option. Because currently, as we speak, there are some telcos who do not charge anything when you do that transaction on their platform. There are others who also charge. So why is the system allowing others to charge whilst others are not charging? You understand? So that is one. In terms of the collection, I think we have learned some lessons from the introduction of the communication service tax. And I'm sure the Ghana Revenue Authority has a mechanism to monitor. Monitor. That one is even on the voice or the data we use. This one is actual transactions, where if somebody transacts a CD business, it's very easy to track. And the GRE has assured that they have a system in place to be able to collect those monies on government's behalf. But we have still not gotten there yet, because you first and foremost need to pass it into law, and then now you can think of the mechanism to implement, be able to collect on your behalf. I think it will be too hasty to think of how you are going to collect it when you don't know whether you will receive the backing of the law to collect it or not. So for me, I'm waiting patiently for the day Parliament will decide that we have given government the green light for
definitely. Government always says that before they actually introduce something, they try as much as possible to put systems in place to make sure that its implementation is effective.
But that system must be in place. But then when you announce it to the public, it's like you are running ahead of yourself. Once it is done, because as we speak, we don't even know the actual percentage government is going to charge. The 1.75, don't forget, was a proposal. And if it had been passed, that is when they will move in and then debate the ratios and everything, and then settle finally on a particular figure. And then we all know that this is the figure we are going to pay. As we speak, we don't know whether it is going to be 1.75 plus 1. That is what the telcos charge, which will be 2.75 on the consuming customer. Or whether it is going to be 1. We are hearing that the telcos are ready to beat theirs down by 2.5%. We still don't have the figures clear. So why should I bother myself with who is going to collect it when I'm not even sure whether it is going to be collected anyway.
In the first
That's right.
place.
The debate is still on, and we hope to see what will come out of it. Let me read some of the messages that are coming through. This one is coming from Kunkuni Yakubu Gafaru from Pandori. You know the place?
Nakpanduri.
Nakpanduri.
This one's Panlori or something? It said, come to the villages and see how we those there are suffering with the Momo charges because the agents suffer before getting the cash money. So I don't get the English well. It says, for example, if you are to send 100 Ghana cedis, you pay 2 cedis. So please, government is going to burden us the more, especially we in the village. This one says, I want to ask Ken Oforiatta concerning
It's the wrong place.
they want us to pay this 11 for them to take bicycle waiter and the pillow. I don't get what this man is trying to say here. Around the motorway to be selling or doing what? We are not going to pay this.
It's not about you.
Yeah. E-levy is not going to solve our problem. The government have borrowed about 200 billion. There's nothing to show, and e-levy will solve our problem. And you are saying e-levy will solve our problems. They are going to spend it themselves.
Yo.
What did the report saying about the money that have been with some people? They should go to them for it and stop e-levy. This one's coming from GY at Pandia. We are getting a lot of messages from the north. Good afternoon. Please, if I borrow money from MTN and to cash it out, will they tax me? And MTN will also tax me? It's talking about this quick loan that you take from. Will that also be taxed?
But they are already taxing.
Good afternoon. I want to find out whether the delay in the payment of NAPCO trainees is as a result of the inability of the government to implement the e-levy. I have 2 brothers who are NAPCO trainees. They have become a burden on me, and my earnings too is not much. I beg the government in the name of God to pay them. Of course, I don't know if this one is related to our topic for the day.
It
We're
is.
discussing
Yeah,
the
it is
e-levy.
because
But,
whatever
you
it
also
is,
find out.
you see, whatever it is, we need to understand that government depends on revenue to execute its expenditure. NAPCO payment is one of its expenditure. Government is able to spend as much as it collects. You understand? And so, yes, to some extent, if there is revenue shortfall, then government decides which one can I hold at bay for some time, which one needs to be paid immediately. You understand? For example, if interest payments, there's no way government would want to hold on to interest payments. So government will choose paying interest.
Yeah, we have more
NAPCO,
messages through. This one says, this one's funny, but e-levy is not a good thing. We Ghanaians are not interested, so they should forget about it. Why should we pay tax yet we can't see what our monies are being used for? Our president is corrupt leader. Let's forget about politics. Truth is truth. You people are there saying education doesn't go down well with people. God will punish you guys. Say fire burn you people. Interesting. We put our mind on borrowing. It's not how we can be free from the economy. Why don't we open factories, cut down expenditure, and see if we can help boost the economy? And then Ghana don't need e-levy now. People are suffering to buy food to eat. Come to northern Ghana and see what is happening. This one is from John Nanumba, North Lanja. I'm reading the messages that are coming through from our viewers. These do not represent any opinion from GBC, GTV, or any of us here. These are messages that are coming from our viewers, the public out there, and what they feel. So we have no say in it whatsoever. Please, I want to ask a question. Assuming I am a government worker and government take my tax on my salary. And I also take some amount to my mother and father in the village through my Momo account, and government is going to tax me as a sender and my parents as receiver. I want to know if a taxing on my 1 month 3 times or more. I'm not getting this. I mean, your question should be a bit clearer for us because, yeah. Let me just take one more. This is not an issue of the minority trying to block the passage of the e-levy bill. This is a pickpocket tax and also an attempt to double tax some of us who are already paying our taxes. Now, these are the views of the public out there. I think we have just about 2 minutes to wrap up.
Yeah.
Let's take our final comments from you. 1 minute each.
You owe me a lot, and but I'll forgive you because we are just in the new year, so I won't go further. I know that next week I'll take my minutes back, and but then I said it earlier on that if we have to achieve something through this levy, then consensus building should form should be the nucleus of the deliberations in Parliament. And we cannot continue to judge forever. People outside there need a lot of development projects. As I sit here, my route from Yendi to Tatale is very rough, and I would have loved to be driving anytime I'm going home, to drive from Accra to, but if I have to drive, what it means is that I have to park the car somewhere along the line and go, because it's so rough and you can't drive a saloon car more than 2 or 3 times on this. So okay. I think that the government needs money to develop schools. Government needs money to develop roads. Government needs money, health centers. That's right. And then the 111 is there. You think so, and so the government needs to negotiate well with the minority in Parliament so that a consensus will be built at the end of the if even they don't get the 1.75, they should reach a compromise somewhere where they can generate some income for
the 1.50 and that.
Sure.
All right, Cliff.
Sure.
Well, I strongly believe our so-called economists, tax experts must do us a lot of good by helping us to widen our tax net. I have said that whether VAT, e-levy, ad valorem, they are all indirect tax. And I believe indirect tax is supposed to be a complement to direct tax.
That's right. Okay.
Unfortunately, it looks as if we find it easy doing the indirect tax, very easy collecting the indirect tax, and so we focus on it. I've told you a lot of artisans, they make millions of money, and yet the system has no way of capturing them. Yeah. Why should Papaya or KFC be paying corporate tax once Hajia Memuna, who is equally selling the same rice, not be paying corporate tax? Is it not the same food that goes through processing that they are all selling? So we have gotten to a point where we need to widen the debate on how we expand our tax net, because you hear of economists, all they do is complain like we the ordinary men, complaining without any solution. They are against e-levy and they are also not proposing any alternative.
Okay. So that brings us to the end of today's program. Thank you very much for joining us on this. I think just like Ramsey is saying, we should discuss this further. So long as it's still being debated in Parliament, I think we still should be talking about it and educating the public out there. So the media should actually take this up and educate the public more, or find out more about this e-levy and educate the public more about it, because the questions coming from our viewers actually indicate that there isn't much understanding out there. So let's keep talking about the e-levy. My name is Jonathan Thompson. I've been doing this discussion together with my panelists, George Ramsey Benamba, my immediate left, Chief Editor, Ghana News Agency, and Cliff Kofo, a journalist with the New Times Corporation. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for listening to us. Bye.